Okay, welcome to the second video on the argument for the existence of bodies and the external world. This argument takes place on that long paragraph that takes up basically the entire page on 115 and goes on to page 116. And it'll help for you to have that argument in mind. I'm not going to read it out here. It's long. And I don't know, it doesn't make sense, I think, for me to spend 5 minutes reading a paragraph, but pause the video, stop the video and read over that argument. It'll make sense for you to have that really freshly in mind before you watch the video. So take a second and read back over that argument on page 115 to 116. And then come back and we'll talk about it. Okay. So I've reconstructed the argument here, and it takes place in two parts as I reconstruct it. So let's talk about the first part. So step number one, I have ideas of bodies from a passive faculty of sensation, right? So he begins by noticing, well, I have these faculties, the senses and the imagination, and these faculties, my senses, my imagination, with those, I seem to receive ideas without the concurrence of, or without the concurrence of my will, without my will acting to bring those ideas about. So I seem to have ideas, and it's not up to me, right? I'm passive, and I just have them. And that passivity makes those ideas advantageous, right? So when I see red, for example, I'm passive, and that idea of redness hits me, and that's what makes my sensory idea of red adventitious. So we could say adventitious. Right, that was one of the three kinds of ideas that we had. Okay, step number two. Therefore, there must be some active faculty affecting it. So the thought here is that every passive thing must arise in virtue of an active thing bringing it about, right? So there's got to be something active that's acting on me to bring about this idea passively in me. And I mean, you can hear this in English, right? So I can't be kicked unless something is kicking me, right? I mean, that's how the passive voice in English works. I was kicked. Well, the only way I could have been kicked is if there was something that was doing the kicking, right? So it's not up to me whether or not I have this passive adventitious sensory idea, the sensation, and there must be something responsible for its arising in me, some active faculty that causes me to have this passive idea. Okay. Step number three, this active faculty presupposes no action of my intellect, no action of my intellect. So in having the sensation or hearing a sound, the passive idea does not depend on any action of my mind, is the thought. There's nothing I'm doing to bring this about. So in the first and second meditation, the idea that I might be dreaming has been bugging me, right? Or for Descartes, the idea that he might be dreaming has been bugging him. And his thought was, well, maybe there was some unknown faculty producing his passive sensory ideas in himself. But now he's going to be ruling that out. Because if it's in himself, if the active faculty is in himself, then it must be produced through an action of his intellect. And he can be conscious of the actions of his intellect. But he's not conscious of any such action of the intellect, nor can he be. And so because it's something that he isn't conscious of, it must be coming from somewhere else. And so it's not coming from him. So in the next step, this active faculty cannot be in me, right? I mean, this is closely connected to the third step. So remember the precise sense of me, right? So this active faculty cannot be in me in the new precise sense from meditation 2. And he's building on that argument here. So the active faculty cannot be in me precisely speaking, i.e. The me whose essence consists solely in the capacity to think. And so it's not in me as a thinking thing. All right. Okay. Step number 5. Therefore, this active faculty adheres in some other substance, either corporeal or of some other sort. Well, this is going to proceed from the fact established in the first stage of the argument that these ideas are really sensory or adventitious ideas, that they happen to me and I'm passive, right? But we still need to know that these things producing these ideas are bodies, external corporeal things. For all Descartes has shown so far, it could be God or maybe even some, evil genius or finite creature that's not a bodily thing, but it is some thinking thing, right? So we need to rule out this or of some other sort. And that's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to do in the next part. So part 2 is going to be concerned with ruling out that it's something besides bodies that causes these passive, adventitious ideas in me. So step number 1 is to remember from meditation 3 that God is no deceiver, right? So we saw that back in meditation 3, God is no deceiver. Step number 7, God has given me no faculty for discerning the origin of my sensory ideas. So these ideas is my sensory ideas, or my adventitious ideas. So I know they come from outside me, right? We've established that much, but I can't find, but I can find no faculty in me that will allow me to discern from whence they came, right? So I have no way of telling exactly, in a clear and distinct manner where they come from. I just know they come from outside me, right? But I have a strong propensity. God has given me a strong propensity to believe that they proceed from corporeal objects, from bodily things, from extended things, from things out there in the world, right? So remember, corporeal, extended. So if I'm, okay. So therefore, corporeal things, objects, extended bodies, they must exist. So there it is. So if I'm so constituted so as not to have a faculty through which I can know whether these ideas come from bodies or some other source, but I have a strong propensity to believe that they come from bodies or corporeal objects or extended things, then if I was deceived in this, and God put this propensity in me, but I have no way of counteracting this propensity, and that propensity is false, well, then God would be a trickster, right? God would be deceiving me. But God is not a trickster, right? We saw that back in meditation 6. So because I have no way of counteracting this strong propensity, and God is not a trickster, well, then I can trust the strong propensity, right? And so I can know that my sensory ideas, the origin of my sensory ideas, the active faculty that gives rise to them is in the extended thing, is in the things out there in the world. So it's because the extended things have the ability to affect me, to bring about these passive ideas, and I have no way of discerning that it's not those bodies out there in the world. And I have a strong propensity to believe that it's those bodies out there in the world, well, then those bodies must exist. That's the idea. Okay, so that is the proof of the existence of next time we meet. But we'll call it a day in this video. In the next video, we'll look at what we trust of these sensory ideas, what we can know of them.